The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon and welcome to today's Top Tips webinar. My name is James Evely and I'm the editor of In Publishing. The format of the webinar is very straightforward. Rebecca will make a 20-minute presentation which will be followed by a 10-minute Q&A. To take part in the Q&A, simply type your question into the panel in front of you at any time. I will then collate the questions and put as many of them as possible to Rebecca after her presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to hand you straight over to Rebecca Billingsley.
Thank you very much, James. Good afternoon to everybody who's out there. Thank you for finding some time on this rainy Tuesday, depressing afternoon to spend some time talking about app discoverability. Today we'll be focusing on how to improve your app's discoverability in the App Store, and as usual I will be focusing on the Apple Store because that's where the majority of sales are occurring at the moment. Most of what we talk about today is actually applicable to other platforms, and in fact many of today's tips are appropriate for you to apply to any mobile apps you might have out in the App Stores in general, not just your digital magazines. I framed this presentation deliberately by talking about how it's becoming increasingly difficult to be found in the App Stores. There just aren't many opportunities to market your product, and the stores are bursting with apps, and editorial curation has all but stopped. So today I'm going to, in the bleak picture of all these things that are going on, try and provide you with my top tips to help you positioning your app to the marketplace. And the good news is none of these require any huge investment. It's just a case of trying to navigate the resource that you have internally to apply the tips that we're going to talk about today. Just before we start, a quick overview about myself. I've been in digital for almost 15 years now, mostly in the digital space, running websites for publishers. I've worked at News UK, Bauer Hachette, BBC Worldwide, which is now media, and it's there that I set up their digital magazine division, putting over 40 of their titles onto the digital newsstands. I set up Big Cat almost 2 years ago in response to lots of smaller publishers contacting me and asking me to help them navigate the digital newsstands and work out what they were going to do with their digital magazines and their websites. In the 2 years that I've been running the business, I've had the pleasure and honour to work with some great clients and brands you can see over on the right, all in digital publishing and across all elements of the digital process. But I will say at this point I've always been and remain completely platform neutral. Okay, that out of the way. Let's talk about app marketing. So what we're going to focus on today is your shop window. I often go out and I talk about X-app marketing, which is generally driving people to the App Store to download your app, and in-app marketing, which is once someone's downloaded your app, the tools that you get to try and convert those people into purchasing things. What we're going to talk about today kind of sits in the middle, if you like. It's the kind of equivalent of displaying your app within the store with shop window in the best possible way and understanding the different touch points in which you can touch a potential customer. So what we're going to do is try and get more users to download your app, or your shell as we sometimes call it. And once that happens, of course, there are lots of different ways that you can try and convert those people into actually purchasing your product within that. But today what we're going to try and do is just increase the number of downloads we've got and the way that people see your product within that store. Some of you may have seen this slide before. I use it a lot in my work because it helps me to focus on putting the discoverability where users are actually looking. And what it does, it talks about how users actually find your app, the different methods that they use to come across it. I group these into three key areas. The first one is obviously App Store discovery, and that would be the kind of general browse in the App Store, which is the top route, and then the top rated most popular app list, which is kind of third. Then there's kind of social media, blogs, and also referrals, friends and family, which ranks quite highly on this. And then there's kind of everything else outside, which is my X-app. So social networking, browsing on the internet, search engines, or your print ads, and so on. But the key point is obviously here, general browsing in the App Store is still the key way people are going to come across you, and therefore I'm glad that that's what we're going to be focusing on today. The next thing I just want to show you here is that these are the 4 ways that people are going to find you within the App Store. So the first one, and we're going to look at them in this order, is a kind of search which are titles and keywords. We've got a couple of slides on that. That will then lead to search results, and we've got one slide on that actually. Then we've got the app description page, which contains also the images and also your users' reviews. So these are the 4 key areas that you can control. I haven't included the charts or the editor's picks here because although they have massive impacts on users finding products, we can't really control those things. So if we get some traction from the tips we discussed today, then you might see your chart positions rise accordingly, or you may be coming to the attention of Apple's editorial team, in which case then the things outside of your control may start to have an impact. So we're going to discuss keywords first. I've spent from the beginning of my career doing App Store discovery or App Store optimization, talking about keywords and how applying website SEO thinking is crucial here. So if you've got a website, you will have Google Analytics, and that analytics package or something similar will have keywords which tell you how users come to your website. And it's interesting, if you look at that, it will give you some words and so on that you may not have thought about for using for your App Store optimization. I'm going to give you an example as to how recently this became really important. I was working with a client who has a 2-word title for their magazine. When we looked at their website search drivers, most of their traffic coming in through search was using their title as 1 word. They were omitting the space between the 2 words in the title. When we looked at the App Store setup, of course they were using the space, the publisher had used the space, client had used the space because that's how they spell it. When we also then looked at user reviews down the bottom of the description page, we saw that the number of users referring to the title with space or without space was split 50%. So then when we looked at how they optimize in the search box with a space and without a space, we realized without a space, because they hadn't used any of that within their keywords, they were not appearing at all. So what we had to do was make sure that we created a keyword with a space and without a space so that they would appear for users who are coming at them with either of those. That's potentially doubling their discoverability in the search box. The other thing that I would use at this stage are users' reviews, because your users will use words that they think about when they're utilizing or looking for your brand. And we're so often so close to our product, we may not realize that that simplistic view of the world in the App Store is what's going to get us results. So if your users are talking about how your app is fantastic for reviews or for advice or for tips, then you need to be using that in your keyword setup as well. And by doing that, you're potentially finding an audience rather than them finding you. Still on keywords, this is a really new area of the market. You know, as store optimizations got worse, great, fantastic for us, companies outside have started to gear up and create solutions where there are gaps. And so there are actually companies out there now who can provide you with free keyword analysis. So the 2 that I use most often are Sensor Tower and Mobile Dev HQ. And what they will allow you to do is set up a number of accounts depending on the number of apps that you've got for free, and suddenly you can start to see your competitors' keywords. This had been hidden to us, until relatively recently. Now you can actually start to see what keywords your competitors are using, and over on the right hand bottom of the slide you can see with Sensor Tower they give you a visibility score for your keywords against your key competitors. This is really interesting stuff, so it allows you to start to play around with the keywords that you're using and start to pit yourself against your key competitors to find the right keywords for you. I would also step outside of your direct competitor set. So if you're here to talk about digital magazines but you've got a car magazine, go and have a look at the car apps outside of car magazines that are performing really well, because guaranteed they'll be using some keywords if they're doing well in the charts that would be great for you and will increase your visibility. I was at a talk the other day and someone asked a question about whether you should use competitor keywords in this, and my view is, now that you can see what keywords your competitors are using, I would avoid that, because if you see anyone using your title here and they shouldn't be, then you have every right to complain to Apple, who may close down the competitor app, and of course that works both ways. So now that these are visible, I just be on the side of caution with things like competitor keywords. Final point on keywords that we're going to talk about is just understanding how they're set up. This has changed since the launch, and if you're not aware of this, you're going to need to go back and change how you're set up in your keywords. You're allowed 99 characters on Apple. I know it's more for Google, and certain things count differently within Google. Apple's actually the most prohibitive, so if you get it right for Apple, you'll do well on the other stores, I'd have thought. Your title also counts towards your keywords. So you'll start to see now lots of titles of magazines saying food magazine, recipes for cooking, because now they don't need to put recipes or cooking into their 99 character keyword limit. Don't repeat the words used in your title in your keywords. There's no point in doing that. Your title counts equal to keywords. So food, magazine, recipe, cooking all count in the title, and therefore you're gaining nothing by using up your 99 characters by repeating those. There's no need to use your company name. That happens automatically. Plural words are automatically generated, so there's no need to go recipe or recipes. Recipe will do. That will save you the number of characters that you're using. And the final piece of advice on this is using individual words with commas that increase your results. So rather than using quite odd niche words, try and use words where in combinations, if people are searching, that's going to work for you. So wedding, venue and hire will create a result if someone types in wedding venues, wedding hire, hire venues, venue hire, so on. So just think about, and editorial teams are really good at this with you, but just think about if people are, what's going to give you the broadest return of results on your keyword setup. Okay, we're going to go into the images. We're going to go into the app description. So this is the page that you've got when you've come up in search and someone clicks into your search result. We'll come back to the search result in images. The app description page really is your opportunity to sell your app, and so many people just kind of write this once and never go back to it. So the tips I'm going to give you here are, you'll see over on the right you've got kind of 4 lines of description and then a more button. Make sure that what you're writing about before you're asking the user to click more is going to grab them enough that that's something that they want to do. If you waste that space with meaningless text that doesn't grab a reader, the chances are they're going to move on before they've even read your full description. The key sources, the other thing that I would look at is what your user reviews are talking about when they're giving you 5 stars. Because by identifying what delights your users in this area of the store, you can start to put that into your app description. So if your users are particularly loving the interactivity or the design or the fact it's easy to use, so on and so forth, then make sure that you're using those words or those points to sell your app, because if it's delighting one reader, it's probably going to pull in lots of other readers as well. The other thing is to talk about the benefits of the digital edition, you know, because you are going to be asking people to buy when they click through to this. So why would they want to do that? Well, because the digital edition makes things so much easier for them. It's portable or it's searchable. You may have tools like bookmarking. At this point, you may want to talk about, well, I would talk about the benefits of subscription. Get them already interested that when they click in, that they're going to want to, you know, subscription's an obvious thing for them. You've already whet their appetite for that. Things like the latest issue downloading automatically, the fact that it comes, you get it the minute it comes out. And of course, that all archive issues that they may have bought could be in their bag or their pocket, wherever they are. The final point I would make on that is you know, quoting your best user reviews. There are a number of reasons for this. One is we've already talked about on the chart we saw earlier on that positive user reviews is a big driver. And I don't know about you, but I know when I'm looking for apps, if I see something with 1 star, generally that's a real no-no for me. I won't download it. So having that positive 5-star, why people liked it, just makes people feel like it's been tried and tested. They're going to get something really good. You know, users in this environment trust other users much more than they trust our marketing speak. The other thing is that if you're releasing new updates, you're wiping your really good user reviews the minute that you release your update. So by putting it into your app description copy, even when you're updating, you're allowing users to see those user reviews without losing them because you've pushed out new updates. Here we talk about the images. There's 2 types of images here. The first one is the search result image. You can see the 3 examples that I've put across the top. The search result image has come on quite a lot. The titles that are doing really well are the ones who are putting thought into this. You can see automatically either your icon or your latest issue will appear top left next to your title of the app and the number of stars you've got and so on. But the companies that are thinking about things here, the companies that are controlling what's happening, are the ones that are putting some thought into the search result images. Things that I would put here are, you know, a bespoke image. You can see here the times and the times. They're really selling how beautiful the product looks. They're giving it you know, a description. The other thing that gaming companies are doing is they're putting any awards that they've won there. So that's a really good thing to do because it shows it's been tried and tested again. Users love it. Your app page images are also really important. So many companies just put the first 5 pages of their magazine there. Why would you do that when you could tell a story? Put the features that your users most like. If you're just a PDF page turner, that's fine. But at least show articles that people love. Use it to tell a story. That's what the gaming companies do now. Highlight the benefits of being a subscriber. You know, talk about the breadth of your content. And if you've got something that's beyond page turner, then show it. Show how you've got bookmarking, or you can save articles, or you can share stuff. Even the most basic apps have these things, and I just think it just drags people in and makes them like them. And then this is the final slide, but it's just about utilising user reviews. You know, user reviews are not just us having a battle with our readers who are telling us things aren't working. They're actually a real opportunity for you to understand how people are using your product and to market to other users because of this trust element within the environment. So to chart higher, it needs more ratings. So make sure you use your Rate This app reminders as much as possible. Also, go to your social media and try and get people to go to the app and rate it positively. We've talked about using updates to control reviews. If you've got loads of terrible ones, then you probably need to think about fixing whatever it is people don't like and updating it so you can wipe your slate clean. But if you have had loads of positive reviews and you have to update as a new iOS comes out, then follow that. Build into your marketing drive a request for more positive reviews. They're so important. I've already mentioned this, but using those reviews then within your in-app page or within your marketing, so if you're sending out an email or you're putting ads on your website, then these are your biggest ambassadors. You know, you've got here Jimmy the Eagle talking about the Metro. I love it. Work days are long. It's great now. I've got my news and entertainment with me. I can always escape for a few minutes, etc. And they'll also identify the most appealing aspect of your app. So then that's the thing that you could be using within keywords and so on, which takes us kind of full circle, just as I hit exactly my 20-minute deadline. I'm going to hand back to James now for some questions. And thanks.
Many thanks, Rebecca.
No worries.
Well, let's fire straight in with the first question. Would you say, in your opinion, that big publishers and multi-title owners naturally have a greater advantage when it comes to increasing discoverability?
I guess yes, in some sense they do. I mean, having been on both sides of the fence, I know my relationship with Apple was much easier. The door was much more open to me when I had 35 titles and I worked for BBC Worldwide than it does for some of my smaller publishers. But then, you know, you can see the movement of some of the certainly the one title publishers and the smaller publishers doing really well in the ABCs now because they are focused on one thing. They know their audience absolutely inside out. They're not jostling for the position within the structure of a bigger company. So I think on that basis there are pros and cons to being both, actually. I think the relationship with Apple is still very, very pushed towards the big companies, the big publishers. But I think if you can get the resource and the focus within your existing teams, you can make a big difference to what's already happening now.
Okay, lovely. And could you, Rebecca, suggest maybe 2 or 3 titles which, in your opinion, have very successful discoverability strategies?
Yeah, I would say The Economist, The Week, and most of the newspaper titles as well. I think in terms of publications, those, and then outside of that, the ones who really know their stuff are people like King Gaming, Candy Crush Farm Heroes. So it's worth keeping an eye on. You know, in the old days when we were setting up websites as publishers, we were looking at our own competitive set, but we were also looking at what the boos and the ISPs and so on were doing in the day, because usually they were the ones who were driving the marketing changes and understanding what was happening.
Okay. In your opinion, will iOS 8 change the rules of discoverability?
As far as I know, it hasn't done. The only impact I think it's made are twofold. One is bundling, but I think you can now only bundle within your own publishing account. So if you are immediate, as far as I'm aware, you can bundle your own titles within that account. You can't go outside of that. And then I think there's video discoverability now on those 5 images that you get in your app page. I think that we will be getting video discoverability in that as well.
Okay. If the bulk of your readership is on Android, what would you suggest in terms of Amazon App Store or Google Play?
At the moment, I would say that's a really good question, actually. I mean, if you're trying to sell things, I would still probably think Amazon, although it's so crowded on there now. The thing with Google is, you know, Android's massive, but we're just not seeing people buy stuff. Certainly the NEWSSTAND is invitation only, so that is a problem. So you are really in against all the games and everything else. And I just, you know, the Android market isn't showing much motivation about purchase. I'm not seeing any big movements towards those 2 platforms. I would be asking a question back, which is, why are you saying that you're Android only? Really?
Okay. And could I, another reader asked, a listener I should say, could I highlight the fact that my apps are ad-free, and is there any evidence that this works positively for consumers?
I certainly see a few apps that I use offering me app-free for a payment. It doesn't move me. I haven't seen any research suggesting that it does. I guess it depends how virulent the advertising version is versus the ad-free version. You know, if the ad-free version, if the ad-based version is so overrun with ads, it's quite a disruptive experience, then by all means advertise that. I just wouldn't be putting myself in that position in the first place, personally.
Okay. Our title was previously discoverable in the What's Hot section. Can you tell us what data is used to show these?
I wish I knew. Nobody knows what's driving the Apple algorithm at all. There's good reason for that, because every single time someone gets an instinct, click farms and review farms and all these things crop up, and lots of horrible hacky things happen. You know, we know that the algorithm is driven by you know, downloads, loyalty, 5-star reviews. That's, you know, but we just don't know completely how that works. I'm really sorry you've lost that.
Okay. Is there a difference to the success of the title if it's free or paid for?
I'm not sure I understand the question in that. I mean, oh, I see. So if you were to make it free, would you get more readers? I mean, that completely depends on the title, the market, the product, the raison d'etre of the actual product. What is it offering? If you're talking about just a pure magazine, I don't see the free magazines at the moment running the App Store in terms of downloads or free downloads. They are doing quite well, though. I think the market's going to be disrupted by that model, but until you've got huge amounts of advertising under your belt, I think it's a very risky strategy.
Okay, and are you losing anything by doing your own ASO as opposed to approaching an agency to undertake it on your behalf?
No, I actually don't know that outside of these tips generally, or spending money on mobile advertising, which to me is fairly questionable in the results that I've seen, whether there's any need to go to an ASO agency. Otherwise I would probably run an ASO agency.
Okay. What's the typical average conversion from free shell download to purchase?
Oof,
The
that
million-dollar
depends.
question.
That's really tough. I mean, you know, I think back in the day on a big title I ran, we were at about 1.5%, but it had the BBC initials in the title, which made the app download a lot higher than some of the others. I think, and it's so difficult to tell as well, because obviously you've got repeat purchase within that. So I don't think there's any stat that could give you that at all. If whoever asked that question wanted to email me outside of this with a sense of who they are and what they're doing, I'd be quite happy to email individually on that.
Okay. Rebecca, I think we've got time for one more. Is getting momentum on discoverability dependent on your existing print readership?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt whatsoever that having your own assets to start with is key. I think it's probably a good time to mention that of the recent projects that I've worked on, the clients that are bundling are seeing a massive inroad into existing print clients now, customers now taking their digital as a digital plus product. You know, the bigger your brand awareness when you start marketing anything is always going to be key. Yeah.
Okay, Rebecca, thank you so much. There were a number of questions I know you didn't get a chance to look at, but I think you said you will write an article for our newsletter this week,
That's right.
yeah, responding to some of the questions. So that will come out this Thursday. Thank you very much, Rebecca, for a fascinating session. A recording of today's webinar will be available on our website shortly. Our next webinar is at 2:30 on Wednesday, the 5th of November, and will be presented by Julian Thorne. The title of his webinar is 5 Top Tips to Increase Your Retention Rates. For more information and to register, please go to the InPublishing website. Finally, if you're a supplier to the industry and are interested in discovering sponsorship opportunities around our Top Tips webinar program, then please get in touch with my colleague Martin Maynard. Until next time, thank you for listening and have a very good afternoon.